Please share your own career journey with us a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I did my undergrad and master's from applied chemistry, Dhaka University. So after finishing my master's, I went for my PhD study in University of Alberta in Canada. So that was in Department of Chemistry. So my background is applied chemistry, but then I went for my PhD in chemistry,
Okay.
and I choose theoretical computational chemistry in my PhD. The reason was not that I love computational chemistry a lot. The reason is that I did not like to work in a lab, a real lab environment. So that was the motivation. Well, I liked physics and math, so that's another motivation. But the most important thing was that I wanted to avoid the experimental lab.
Yeah.
But over the time, actually, right, I like computational chemistry. So in my PhD, I also work on density functional theory and looked into the reactions of carbonic acid in water, that how carbonic acid dissociates into the water and air water interface. So we used ab initio or density functional theory based molecular dynamics to do that. So that was my PhD. And then after my PhD, I moved to United States of America, and then I worked as a postdoc in a couple of institutions. First, I was in a national lab, Pacific Northwest National Lab, worked on solvated ion in water, and I worked in a collaboration project with the experimentalist. And then I moved to UC Berkeley, and there I actually worked this N205 and machine learning surrogate model development with David Limmer. He's an excellent person. I mean, I learned a lot when I worked with him. And then I did a short postdoc at University of Louisville, and that's interesting. That was in the mechanical engineering department, because mechanical engineers has the material engineers in there too. So he was a material guy, so looking into the chemical system. So in right higher study, the field are very close to each other, right?
Mhm.
And then after that, right, in 2022, I joined Howard in the chemistry department.
Okay.
Yeah, so my
Wonderful journey and a long one as well.
it's just a long journey, but my research focus was always right computational chemistry from my PhD.
Mm. Okay. So, what are your suggestions for someone who aspired to be a academician, wants to join as a tenure track faculty? So, what should they focus?
Let's say that somebody has finished the masters and want to do a PhD and then want to do the academic career. So I think the most important thing is choosing the academic institutions and your supervisor. That's very important,
Okay.
right? And, so sometimes it happens, right, that you get a PhD offer and you accept that because you're very happy that you got one. The same thing happened for me, right, in my case. But the most important question is asking that how good your supervisor is, how good the group is, right? Are they doing influential work? Are their works impactful? I think that's a right most important question. So sometimes you right can be in a better position if you come from highly ranked reputed university. So that's one way. The other way, right, you can be in a advantage position if your supervisor is well known. So sometimes it happens that the university is not that much reputed, but the person as a scientist is very well known in the community. So if you come from those big group, that's always help you. And generally what happens that these big peoples, they do more competent work, and that's why when you are in that group you learn more. So
Mhm.
that's why my first suggestion will be, when you choose your supervisor and the university, choose wisely.
All right.
And right, similarly, what research field you're working, because now, right, the knowledge is so big, even in one specific subgroup, you get a many different branches, right? So, for
Right.
example, chemistry is a branch, right? Physical chemistry is part of that. Computational chemistry, even part of that. And within computational chemistry, we have different group, right? Some people do right these ab initio density functional theories. Somebody do molecular dynamic simulations. Somebody do more theoretical work. Somebody develop the computational method. Somebody do materials. So there's a lot of things.
Ye- Yeah,
Now,
it's so diverse, classified, and deep.
very diverse. So picking, right, the subset of your research, that is, right, some uh, high topic in the field down the road. That's important, because sometimes you see that this is the emerging field and a lot of university hire people from that field.
Hmm.
That's important. Sometimes some scientific question from a classical point of view is very interesting, but maybe, right, last 50 years people tried to solve that and nobody were able to solve that. So you need to move on and go to a field that looks like fancy to the people. That's always help. So I think it's important that how you choose your supervisor, how you choose your university, how you choose your the research area or research field.
Hmm.
Now, there should be a couple of parameters, I'll say, that right, research on the group that you're going to join. See the previous publications of your supervisor. See where the students, the previous students of the supervisor went. Are they successful? Are they in academia? So let's say you're
Hmm.
joining a PhD supervisor and we see in last 5 years nobody from that group got an academic position, then, right, your chances is very small. But if you go to a group where you see that in last 10 year, right, 20 people from that group has been in academia, so that means, right, when
Okay.
you get out from the group, right, there are 20 other people. If you apply, they will just recognize who is your supervisor. So that's why a powerful group is very, very important. And the same way that what field you're doing the work. And then, so this is the primary thing. Then the second point that comes is your output during your PhD. That right, whether you have publications and good publications, and sometimes the number of publications matters, and sometimes the quality of the publications matter, right? So you need
Right.
actually a combination of both, right? If you have, right, and it's also depends on field, right? So for example, you're in biological field nowadays, I think, right, without right few very high profile paper like Cell, Science, Nature, you cannot get a faculty position. But if you go to, right, some other field in chemistry or physics, this may be different, right? It's dependent from and the subfield to subfield, right? So what you need to always right, the person who is interested is always compare his own performance with the peer group, right? So
Hmm.
you can just find out, let's say, look into the profile of 10 new assistant professor from your same field
Hmm.
who joined into the academia in last 2 and 3 years.
Got it.
And
That's a very good strategy to figure out.
yes, and then just look into their Google Scholar profile or their website, see how many publications they have, which journal, what field they did. So that little research will give you that what are the area where people get more jobs in the academia, right? How many publications they have, what is the quality of the publications they have. So that's the how you adjust yourself to the peer group.
Okay. So,
Those are the most efficient thing, that the most important parameters that we need to look into.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
You nicely summarized the important points that someone should consider before going into a PhD program, right? So, let's say someone has finished his PhD program, is in postdoc or somewhere. So, for them, can you please compare 3 point which one the university will value more, like the publication or the affiliation or the face value of the mentor? So which one carries more weight in terms of?
I, I think it should be all of them. You need to compare, right? The first thing for a postdoc should be that the postdoc position will contribute to something, right? Contribute in your skill,
Hmm.
or either the affiliation, right, or in publications in some way. If, right, if a postdoc just a regular job, let's say that I did my PhD, I'm doing my postdoc more or less into the similar category,
Hmm.
then it does not help you a lot. If you
Right.
go to a group, maybe the research is a little bit different, or the technology is better, the approach is better, so something has to be right, that's contributing to you. So
Hmm.
that's the most important thing. The second one, you need to balance what you have and what you don't have. So let's say that somebody in a PhD has done right, and considerable amount of publications. Let's say somebody did 5 or 6 publications, and that's considered a lot. But he doesn't have very high ranking journal publications. So now he should focus that, okay, I have already numbers, the number doesn't matter to me now. Now I need to focus that where I'll get a very high profile publications.
Okay.
Maybe that somebody, maybe in a PhD he got a very high profile publications, but he got only 1 or 2 publications. Now he should focus, go to a right project that's almost ready, and he can just quickly publish more. So you need to balance. If somebody comes from, let's say, my PhD supervisor is very well known, then in the postdoc you can, right, be a little bit relaxed and think where you can learn new steps. Or maybe you're coming from a university where maybe your supervisor is not very well known. Now for the postdoc you should then look for somebody very well known. So that's the how you need to balance. But the golden rule that I'll say is, you need to think that whether this position will add something to your skill set, not
Okay.
just that I have done one more postdoc that is, right, 2 lines in my CV and a
Mm.
job that pay me. That should not be the motivation. The motivation should be, okay, in my PhD I have learned this, I have this skill set, I can do this and this experiment, or I have contributed into this field. Now in the postdoc, that will be adding some dimension to that skill set. So I think
Okay.
that should be the way you looked into.
Okay. Very important point. Thank you. So I have another question. So how important do you think is the consistency of research track? Let's say, is it good if someone changes the research focus a little bit because he has experience in multiple different dimension, or do you think being consistent or having the same research focus is more valuable? What do you think?
It should not be exactly the same thing. So I mean, then so if your continuation is just, let's say I'm seeing your PhD work and I'm seeing your postdoc is just a linear continuation of that, that is never good. It should not be a linear
Okay.
continuation. So let's say, so how can I explain it? Let's say you're doing a PhD for 5 years, and I'm looking at your postdoc work and I'm just thinking it means your PhD for 8 years.
If it's the
Okay,
same thing, yeah.
exactly same thing, right? Yeah. Then it's not a good thing at all. But that does not mean that you have to completely get out of your field. It doesn't mean that. You have
Mm,
to be, right, there should be a dot by which you connect your PhD and postdoc and other works, right? There should be a connection, but at the same time there should be some novelty that people see that you did a slightly different things.
mhm.
But
Okay.
if it is a linear, right, progression, right, continuation of your PhD, that's always bad.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. All right. So now, tell us some of the pros and cons in an academic careers.
Pros are, right, academia has a different nature, right? I think if somebody work in the research field of some industry,
Like,
that's very similar to
maybe
academia.
maybe you can compare with industry or government and those
Yeah, a
positions.
regular job in industry, right? Yeah. So if you compare, not a research job, because the research job will be very similar to academia in many cases, depending on, right, what
Hmm.
sophistication they have in the research. But generally, if you're in academia, it's a little bit relaxed and flexible, right? You don't have a very sharp timeline when you start, when you end your day, but the total amount of work is not less. You have to do a lot of work, right? But you have a flexibility that how you organize your work. You have a lot of freedom, and right, so really a lot of freedom. When somebody is an assistant professor, is still that they have to apply for the tenure. That's a problem. But generally, the academic environment is much more flexible and freedom. And the second thing, that you can do whatever what you like, right? So there's no bindings, right? How you choose your research topic, right? You
I
need,
choose my own project, right?
yeah, you choose your own project. You can just write proposals to get the funding, and if the funding is available, you can get the money, and you can choose the students, you can do the work. So that's the most important freedom I have. If I go to the cons, right, one cons will be this tenure thing, right? So when you are an assistant professor, you're not a tenured professor. That means after 5 or 6 years you will be evaluated for your tenure, and if you don't get a tenure, that means you have to leave the job. So
Yeah.
that's a huge pressure. Now, if some universities are very competitive, right, their tenure rate goes to, let's say, 60-70%. So that
Oh,
means, right,
so
30-40% does not
one
get.
out of five people
Yeah,
will not will be
if you go to the
successful.
right, yeah, very competitive universities like that. But if you get a little bit less competitive university, then tenure rate is high. So that's more than 90%. So, so
Hmm.
this depends on that what kind of university. Uh,
That's an important criteria when someone choose a university to join.
Yeah, exactly. But there are two things. One is, if you are in a very highly competitive university and if you don't get tenure there, you sometimes get a job in a less competitive university very easily because they like those guys who were in a competitive university. And the other thing, I saw a research article that was researching on the professors who were rejected tenure, and down the road, after 5, 6, or 10 years, they're asking question: are those people less happy than the people who got tenured? And that has a surprising result that a study showed that people are equally happy. So it doesn't matter that they didn't get the tenure. I don't know how or why, but that was a surprising result in that study. So I think this is one of the cons, that this tenure is sometimes really pressure, right? Because you need to publish, you
Mm.
need to supervise the students who successfully defend PhDs, and you have to have external funding. So that's another cons is, in most of the cases, the university professors are not, right, very well paid compared to the outside jobs. Some of the industry job actually paid much more better than the university setup. And for some subject, the university jobs are highly competitive. This is because, right, a lot of PhD students now are coming, and the job field are not tailored for those PhD positions. So they actually go to the academia and compete with the positions. And that's why getting a competitive good position is really tough sometimes, unnecessary tough, compared to if I look into the other field. So if
Right.
somebody has an option to go to the industry, then the job field is much bigger. And sometimes, right, in many subject, if you do a master's, you actually get a very good job field rather than PhDs, right? In many engineering setup, right, a master's is very good to get a job. But if you go to some basic subjects, right, previously people said that if you do a PhD and then not more than 3 years postdoc to get a faculty position, so that was some golden rule. But now I think there is no number, because there's due to a lot of people are in there. People do 5, 6, 7 years of postdocs to get a faculty positions.
Mm. All right. Thank you. So my last question, and this is for everyone. And you mentioned about happiness, right? So how can someone maintain a good work-life balance? So, like, it's not about only researcher or scientist in general. Let's say anyone and in different professions. So, what are your tips or suggestions to maintain a good work-life balance?
I think that's a very critical question, and maybe nobody knows the answer. That's what we always, right.
If you have a if you have a thumb rule that if you do this, you will be happy.
Yeah, I think the thumb rule is just being organized and pre-planned everything. I think that that's the thumb rule, that you always, right, make a plan that this is my to-do list, right, in the short term and long term, and,
Hmm.
and then right, using your time uh, in a proper way and organized way to achieve those. So in most of the time, what happened that, right, this professional and personal life overlap in most of the cases, right? And
Yeah.
you, right, separate them, right? What time you put in there and what time put in there. So that's, I
Yeah,
think that's,
we usually tend to carry the pressure of work to home and the problems of home to work. And
yeah.
then,
I mean, I do that many times. So sometimes it happen, right, that during the weekdays, I think, okay, I'll do the work in the weekend. because that's the free time, right? And then in the weekend, that's not weekend anymore, right? So I don't get the weekdays or the weekends. So yeah, sometimes that happens.
Okay, so
A lot of
yeah,
people complain the same way, that when
being
they work
organized.
home, when they work from home, that their that office time and personal time, that overlap. So I think, right, some people say that, right, clearly distinguish between the office time and the personal
Hmm.
time is a good way. So I think the model will be different from person to person, but a person should find out that which model works for himself or herself the best, and then stick to that and just make it organized and pre-planned. I think that's the best way to solve
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Galibhai, for coming to this platform and sharing your insights, your research. And I think, I believe a lot of people, future scientists, will be benefited from these insights and knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This is my pleasure. Yeah. Have a good night. Assalamu alaikum.